Hey y'all, Jeremy James, Lifestyle Real Estate. Just wanted to go over our market update for the week of May 10th through May 17th. Going to look at just those weeks' numbers, and then we're going to look a little bit more in depth over the trending numbers. So the current active listings for last week, 1,461, with 350 of those in Fayette County. Total solds, those are the number of closed transactions, 189 with 72 of those within Fayette County. And the number of pendings, the ones that have gone under contract, 327 with 117 of those being in Fayette County. The number of expireds were 25 with 4 of those being in Fayette, and the total number of withdrawals at 41. What we're seeing is a continued steady trend of active listings. In Lexington, it is we're slowly building up a little bit more, but the number of pendings is what's keeping that number from really building up, and same across the board throughout Central Kentucky. So that's good to see that the listings are coming on, and our inventory is staying about steady right now. But one thing that we're seeing is a definite uptick in the number of houses that are going under contract. We were seeing it fairly steady there for a while, but over the last 3-4 weeks, that has been on a continually upward trend, both within Fayette County and in the rest of Central Kentucky. So the number of transactions that have actually closed this last week is up from the week before, fairly significantly. But what we've been seeing was, after a slow decline through the first part of the COVID crisis, we've been seeing an uptick toward the end of last month, and then this last week we saw another little bit of a bump. But it's certainly not crashing, which is very good to know. The total properties removed last week, that's whether it's expired or whether someone has pulled it from the market for whatever reason. We're seeing those numbers are basically stabilizing after a spike from 2 weeks ago at the end of the month. So that's good. That looks like we're through with folks pulling their houses from the market because of COVID-19, and now if they're removing them, it's because it's like expiring or whatever else. So that's good to know. Another thing for us to be very encouraged about are these numbers right here. This is specifically for the Central Kentucky, the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors. This is the MLS that I belong to, and where most of our properties are actually listed here in Central Kentucky. The last couple weeks I've had the Kentucky numbers as a whole. These are very much more specific to what we are working with right now. And as you can see, as of yesterday, which is the latest numbers that we have, that we are dead even from where we were this time last year. And like I said, last year was a very good year for buying and selling a house. It was a very good year. So we've obviously, the showing activity, the buyer activity has definitely increased over the last month and is looking to start trending with where we were last year. Those numbers are going to be a little hard for us to really see go up more, simply because there's not a lot of inventory out there, which is very good for sellers. So if we can see that inventory start to climb even more, we're going to start seeing more showings for buyer activity, obviously. So as we look at that, we're watching for the last week and a half to 2 weeks. We've been watching our numbers of showings for year over year, which is how we measure. So our activity based on last year, we are trending right with last year's numbers and activity for the last several weeks, which is very, very good. All in all, I'm pretty encouraged by what we're seeing in the market, just because we have watched some of the houses come off the market, but our listings are going back on. Buyers are in the market. We've actually heard from Fannie and Freddie Mac about what they're going to be doing with the forbearance program, which is helping a lot of lenders so that they now know what to do. And so if someone has gone into forbearance because of COVID-19, all they need to do is stay current on their payment with the program that they've worked out with their lender for 3 months, and then they'll be eligible to either refinance or actually purchase another home. Sell and purchase, obviously. So that's very good news. The nice thing about that is that the government usually follows what Fannie and Freddie do. So we're expecting now to hear from the government to see what the government-backed loans are going to do, the FHAs, the Kentucky Housings, and all that kind of stuff. So we're still waiting on those. That still represents a large share of the number of buyers that we have in Central Kentucky. But these Fannie and Freddie, that's leaders within the industry, in the mortgage industry. And if this is the guidelines that they're laying down, we're probably going to see something very similar with the government housing stuff. Interest rates are still low, very, very low. And I think a lot of that, plus the interest rates plus the low inventory, is what's driving a lot of this market. Same story as last year. Low inventory, high demand, because rent is definitely high. It doesn't take long before you're looking at a $750 to $1,000 a month rental payment, and all of a sudden that's $125,000 to $150,000 house, and now all of a sudden you're not renting anymore. Now you're buying. So we know that the demand is definitely high. We know the inventory is low. So we are continuing to expect, as long as things don't change drastically from some outside influence, we're continuing to expect the market to recover and find its way out. We're looking at some of the unemployment numbers, and we were a little concerned with that initially, though on a deeper dive into those numbers, the lion's share, and though it is difficult, for those who've been laid off, the lion's share of those looks to be those who are making under $40,000, which typically aren't within the home buyer group, if you will. So we take that for what it is. But going forward, we're going to keep looking at these numbers. We're going to keep following them for you. I do some year-over-year stuff. I probably will start looking at the actual numbers from last year and comparing them to this year as far as homes sold, etc., just to see where we are now with things. But for the last couple weeks, we haven't done that just because the COVID market was completely different to last year, and those numbers up until recently weren't even comparable. So it wasn't even worth looking at because we knew where we were at. But we know that the buyers are out there. I myself have been showing properties, putting properties under contract. Folks are going. Lenders are lending. They're mostly looking around a 640 number, although some are telling us that they can do 620s, but the interesting thing about that is typically that 620 has to be perfect in every other regard. 640 is what seems to be getting it done right now as far as low end to the bottom of the credit score. If you have any other questions, give me a holler, 859-684-2979. If you want to take a look at some properties, check out my website, www.sellitjeremy.com. Check me out. We'll be doing this weekly, continuing to do this weekly from here on out. You can see me on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Check me out. If you have any questions about these numbers, just let me know, and I can send them over to you. We'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.